Okay. Just for the record, are you okay with me recording this interview?
Yeah, it's fine.
And before we get into any questions, just your name and your occupancy.
So, Scott Zimmerman, I'm the general manager at the UPMC Event Center here at Robert Morris University.
Okay. And since you were part of the crew, you decided that fans are going to be allowed to basketball, volleyball games, any event that's going on in the UPMC Event Center. I just want to start off. Why did you and your crew come to this consensus on letting people attend?
Yeah, so just probably some small correction. As we are gathering information and as the state's targeted mitigation orders change from time to time, the university as well as the athletic department as a whole are trying to make a determination of moving forward for providing occupancy. And it's important to realize that there are sometimes that, in a case like basketball, the conference really has an involvement within all of their conference teams on how those teams should move forward. So the difficult part of all this is that many moving parts are going on. So there's internal discussions on the RMU campus. There are discussions within the conferences. You're trying to integrate the mitigation that is put forth by the state, and really, quite honestly, that kind of dictates what's happened. So, what and knowing that none of the decisions that are being made are final. So, as the pandemic continues to move forward and case counts beginning to spike, not only in this facility but most every facility across the country, they are reacting to what they feel is the best interest of participants, guests, staff, and forward. So, you know, in the case of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania put out an update to the occupancy last month that basically had a calculator to allow venues to have a maximum allowable capacity based on your occupancy. So that's actually out there on the state website. So it impacted indoor facilities a little differently than outdoor facilities. The Steelers, as an example, can have up to 7,500. In our particular case, we fall in the 15% of maximum occupancy range. So that puts us at approximately 600 people, and that's inclusive of participants, staff, guests, everyone.
Okay. And from what you know, what factors and other contributions besides like the state guidelines went into this final decision?
Well, I think that the university as a whole has a group that's been working together throughout the course of the entire pandemic since it started on evaluating, you know, safety measures based on the information that is being provided. Obviously, we continue to hear the same things over and over again. Wear your mask, wash your hands, keep your distance as a way to mitigate. And I don't know that anyone has obviously the complete right answer. I think what we're trying to do, not only from this small microcosm of the university, but societally, is we're trying to obviously get a handle on what's happening to reduce the case count increases. Not so much because, at least for me, it's more about protecting those around you who you may not be aware of have high risk or what have you. But I think I think really from our standpoint, the what you start with is what does the targeted mitigation look like? And so um, the mitigation measures came out in July and have been edited and modified and added to along the way. Before we went red, yellow, green, and I don't think we're ever going back to that. But you're trying to deal with as much information as you can that's out there that's provided to you. Also, the university has contact with the county health department, who again also is putting out targeted mitigation. So it really goes from county oversight, state oversight, federal oversight, and following CDC guidelines, I think, is probably the most critically important.
And I'm pretty sure you answered this with your first question, but you said about 600 people will be allowed into the arena based off the calculations given by the state.
Yeah, so our maximum occupancy is set at about 4,000. It's 4,000 for basketball, right? So it's based upon not just the counted number of seats, it's the maximum allowable occupancy within the facility. And so when I talk about the arena, the conference center space obviously is separate from that, because it has its own. It's really built as two separate entities, so it has its own occupancy as well. But so there's a calculator down on the state website that provides for indoor event occupancy and outdoor event occupancy. And we fall into the category of 2,001 to 10,000 people as our maximum occupancy. So your allowable number is 15% of that capacity, of that occupancy. That's how they get to it.
Do you know any guidelines that people attending must follow? Like, is it going to be similar to the football games we've seen where people just be split up into pods with the arena?
Yeah. So, and I think what it'll end up being is you'll follow the standard CDC guidelines. You'll wear a mask. You'll have to socially distance. Ticketing will be done in pods within the 6 foot distancing capacity. Usually, and again, this is one of the difficult parts of it, is usually when someone's buying a ticket, it's someone within their household or someone close to them. So those allocations will happen randomly. And what I found out is, in talking to the guys at the Steelers, they're working through trying to make sure that when they put up, as an example, a set of 4 seats, that someone doesn't come in and grab 2 of those, because at that point, the way that the guideline works is you're not allowed to sell the other 2 to someone else, right? So when I come in and grab my 4 seats, I got to grab all 4, right? So trying to navigate and manipulate that within the spacing can prove to be challenging, but that's kind of how most all the arenas and stadiums are doing it right now. Typically, you're doing it in even numbered pods because, based on the information we've got, tickets are typically purchased in even numbers, believe it or not. You might get the random here and there, but I'm sure athletics will allow for that when they're trying to set forth their guidelines.
And over the past few weeks, like cases at RMU, Pennsylvania, have really gone up. Do you think that RMU will retract the statement of allowing fans if these numbers continue to go up by the spring?
Well, I think what'll happen first and foremost is I think that the interesting thing is that when the pandemic started and the climb increased, the state stepped in and started putting in the mitigation. However, left certain decisions up to certain organizations, which was kind of interesting because the school districts were left to their own vice to determine what they would do in the best interest of their community. I would think that if cases continue to increase for a period of time at the current rate they've been increasing over the last 3 to 4 weeks, I think that it would probably be that the county or state would then begin to make adjustments to what they call the targeted mitigation measures, and that will kind of dictate for us. I think every organization has its own has the ability to make its own decision. However, some of those are governed by the organizations that they're part of. So the Horizon League, as an example for basketball, has determined through the end of December that none of the conference games will have fans at that point. So, and then they'll make an evaluation again in December on moving forward with fans. But that's a league-wide decision that's based on a bunch of, either presidents or athletic directors having those ongoing discussions. For me, as living in an event-based world that I've been in my entire career, I'm hoping that we get to the point where um, we start to slow this thing down a little bit so that we can get people back to live events because, quite honestly, um, sports and live events and music is really kind of what bring people together from a standpoint of celebrating and enjoying that aspect of their lives.
And a final question I have for you is if these numbers keep going up and let's say like the state or like counties don't step in or anything, do you fear that teams are going to be likely to contract the virus and spread it to other schools?
Um, I don't necessarily think so. I mean, if you see what's happening, and again, it's all about how the testing works and when you test and what the protocol is around testing, right? So, in all of the leagues across the country, there is a significant amount of testing that takes place. In the NFL, I think the NFL actually has gotten it pretty decent, has done a really good job, and they had certainly some time to plan in that they're testing their players almost every day. I think they're tested 6 days a week. When they're in the facility, they're tracking them with an armband tracking device that allows them to know what that contact tracing really looks like. At the end of the day, behavior is really what is ultimately going to change this. Getting away from the traditional way that we have interacted and moving to something that is very difficult for people to change, albeit only for a short period of time. I think I don't have a fear of people. I don't have a fear of people contracting if they come to events. I think, provided they are following all the protocols, they're socially distancing. They're following the guideline pieces. There's probably still a lot more that isn't known about. Obviously, the virus, it's airborne, right? So buildings are making measures to make sure that they're trying to do as much as they can to try and mitigate. There are even measures that are going into venues that are that are asking buildings to take in more outside air to try and recirculate the air as much as they can because it's an airborne virus. So, they're not just the steps of, hey, wash your hands, put your mask on, and stay away from each other, right? There are a whole bunch of other things. And then on top of that, the cleaning aspect of not only cleaning, but disinfecting and sanitizing as well on the back end on a regular basis, right? But quite honestly, the spread of the virus is really based on behavior. And the unfortunate aspect of it is that that you can now carry it asymptomatically and pass it along, which has probably been the most difficult thing I think over the last few weeks. But the example I would tell you is, because you referenced RMU on campus, is that I have a son that goes to Penn State, Maine, and their curve with respect to cases peaked in September and has declined all the way through this last week. So they have a dashboard that reports weekly by campus what the case counts look like, both random and specifically. And so their actual numbers have actually gone down. Now, at the end of the day, is that due to less interaction because there are less events on campus? Maybe, but like it was pretty high in September, and I was surprised that it went down because I really would have thought that after Halloween it would have increased.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you for that statistic. That's all the questions I have.
Yeah, good.
Just thank you for taking time out of your busy Monday to talk to me.
Not a problem.
Yeah, I hope you have a good Thanksgiving as well.
You
And
too.
I
And
will end this recording.
let me just say this, Jared. I think